This is a basic tutorial video on how to use the Bartech follow focus kit that I have from Tom Will's Steadicam. Inside this case you'll find the transmitter, the receiver, the motor, Allen keys, power cables, motor cables, a bunch of accessories, and antennas. Antennas are very important. Also, gears. Don't know if you'll need them, but they're there. Here's the transmitter fully built up. You'll notice that it's got the wheel on it, it's got the focus strip on it, it has an antenna on it. This antenna has to come off when you put it in the case, and it has to be put on when you take it out of the case. Do not power it up without an antenna on. It then also has this lanyard which breaks away, so should you need to store it back in the case, it's hard to do this with one hand, you can fold this up, put it somewhere else, and this can just lay on top of the Bartech transmitter in the case. On the transmitter, there are three switches, and these are the only three switches you should really need to learn. Power on off, that's pretty simple. Green light means your battery is good. If it goes red, it means your battery is dying. Change it. Forward and reverse switches the direction. So for instance, right now, this direction goes close, that direction goes infinity. If I flip the switch, it'll go the opposite direction. Momentary continuous, that only matters if you're using the Bartech to turn on and off the camera, which is done via this switch right here, run stop. To change transmitter batteries, make sure it's off, slide this door open, and dump the battery out. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work, and requires the door staying open. There we go. Cool. You can also just pry the battery out. I only have one hand free since I'm shooting this video, so I can't. On here you'll notice minus and plus. Just line those up to the markings on the battery when you insert it and put the door back on. So I shall do that now. We have a plus is that guy. Oh, pardon me, this is harder to do with one hand than it looks. Plus to plus, insert the battery, close the door, and it'll power right on. Great. And if it doesn't power on, swap the battery. It's likely you put it in backwards. This is the receiver, or the motor driver, or a lot of different names for this little device. This is the part that'll go on your rig. Obviously we've got the antenna. The antenna stays on there when it goes into the case. On both transmitter and receiver you have a channel selector. They just have to be pointing with their arrow to the same channel. Power input on the front and an on-off switch. On the back there is a port for the motor, a port for potentiometer, which we don't use, power, and cam. Cam is cables to run and stop cameras. Power is obviously power input. Potentiometer is for controlling your own focus while you're operating Steadicam. And obviously the 5-pin for motor there. Also, this light can light up red and green. It is a status LED. On top of it, there's this dovetail here. This dovetail allows you to mount things like my Steadicam or this handy little 15mm rod bracket. It just slides on, and you use the yellow Allen wrench, because of course my Allen wrenches are color-coded, to tighten that screw, which clamps it on, and then the nice big kip handle tightens it onto the rod. So this is a really easy way to mount it on the back of a camera, for instance. So here is the motor as it comes out of the case. It's all folded up, and probably you have no idea how this works. So it's very easy to unfold. You need to make sure that this screw is loose. I know it is right now because I loosened it before the video. And you can basically unfold the motor. It needs to be folded that way to fit into the case. But when you unfold it, you can set this angle. This angle helps you get in around lenses. And I'll show you how that works. But basically, as long as it's kind of sort of at an angle like this, it'll work. If it's totally straight, there's no way you're going to make it touch a lens. So, from my experience, that is about the best angle. What you then do, you again use the yellow Allen wrench, and you're going to tighten that screw in there. So here the kit is, all set up, powered on, currently powering off of this Anton battery, and we're pretending that there's a camera on this plate rather than just nothing. I have the motor attached to the rods there, and you can see the receiver is powered up, the motor cable is going into the motor, and the power cable is going to that 4-pin XLR coming off the battery. So, to calibrate this, first step is to take your lens to the middle of its range. So, it's usually 5-6 feet, really depends on the lens. You don't have to be precise, just somewhere roughly in the middle of its range. Make sure that this gear does not touch the motor. Make sure that there's some distance between it and the motor. Then, on the receiver unit, there are these 2 wheels and this switch. Make sure you can see that. 2 wheels and the switch. What I want you to do is roll both of these wheels all the way to the center towards the switch. Roll both of them all the way towards the switch. Flick the switch in either direction. And what you'll notice is when I did that, I'll give you an example. What you'll notice is that when I flick the switch towards the center, the motor will go to the center of its range. And no matter what I do to this switch now, that motor is stuck in the center of its range. Engage the motor to the lens at this point using the big kip handle down here, loosen it, put it towards the lens, engage it, flip this switch to either side, and roll these wheels until you get to the end of your lens's range. Flip to the other side. It'll go right back to the middle of the lens. Roll this one until you get to the other end of your lens's range. If you hear it stall, if you hear the motor kind of whirring and you're right at the end of the range, back it off just a hair. Flip it back towards the center. You should now see a red light on there. That means you're good. If you see a flashing red and green light, that means the motor is still in calibrating mode. You have to flip the switch towards the center so you see just a solid red light. Then, when you power on this transmitter, that solid red light will now be a solid green light, and we now have full control. That's as easy as it is. The only thing you really need to remember is when you're calibrating it, you have to center both of those knobs with the lens away, or with the motor away from the lens, center the lens, engage it, calibrate it. If you have any problems with it, the manual for the Bartech is in the lid of the Bartech Pelican case. And also, if you have any problems, feel free to call me on my cell phone, and I'll be happy to walk you through anything you need. All right, good luck with your shoot.